Just another thing that I forgot to mention that a lot of students did tell me at high schools and just in general, they did like the week-long fall break option, but not necessarily the 45-10 option. But that was the option that they did like if they said it were an option on the table. And at that time, I didn't know that it was one that was being considered. So
Everybody that I've talked to seems to like the fall break, whether it's students, teachers, parents, whomever. But anyway, are there, Mr. Harris?
Adam, thanks for setting me up, because yes, I was going to say that actually I'm leaning towards the traditional calendar with a 1 week fall break. And I'd say primarily for me, I think if we really want to get the impact potentially from this program, we're going to have to spend significant amount of money. And my priorities would be teacher raises and technology. And so until we know that we're going to have the funding to do that, I would be reluctant to go ahead and approve something like this when we could do it, if we do get more money and more funding somewhere down the road. But I mean, that's going to be a lot of money to get teacher raises where we want them to be in the technology. I mean, we're talking 30 or $40 million right there. I mean, I would have a lot of heartburn to spend $4 million on adding, it's like scenario 3 if we couldn't do some of these other things first. And so I guess that's where I'm leaning right now. And I think, too, also, there's a lot of people that really do not want this. I mean, it looks like there's like 20 or 30% of parents that are really against it. And I know that there's more people that are for it, but the people that are really against it, I think are going to be, they've got reasons maybe that it's going to really upset their household or whatever. I'm not really sure, because the people that I talk to that are for it, they look at it kind of like me. For me, I looked at it from my family point of view. I said, yeah, this would be nice. I think I'd rather do it. It would just fit our family, cycle better. But I don't care if we would change it or not. It's not that big of a deal. As opposed to people I think that are against it, I think they've got some reasons it's really going to upset their family balance. And so I'd be a little bit reluctant to try to push that through and maybe do some harm there.
Ms. Fugate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's going to cost a whole lot of money, and I'm not saying, I think there are other things we need to spend our money on. My only reason I spoke about this earlier is that it troubles me when people say the administration is pushing this, when this board asked the administration and this school and our staff to do the research on this. Before I came on the board, 6 or 7 years ago, had this discussion. The board chose not to do it. It's been talked about. Like I said, we hear rumblings of it a lot. I'm like you, Doug. Personally, it would work in my life just fine, and that's not the issue. I do think it's going to cost a lot of money. I think we have to prioritize what we want to spend. I was just trying to clarify that when people make these accusations that the administration is pushing this, when this is something the board asked the administration to look into for us, that was the only point I was trying to make to clarify.
Respond to that. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I mean, I think Dr. McIntyre, he said tonight he's not even sure what his recommendation will be. And I would say I was totally neutral on this before we started. I was glad we had this discussion. I probably would have said 6 months ago that, yeah, I think I'm probably for a balanced calendar now. I've totally changed. So I think what we've done for me has been very helpful. That it's changed my mind, and I've learned because I didn't really know anything about it. And ultimately, if you could get to scenario 3, 4, or 5, it might be really a good model that I might want to do. But because of what I see the reality of funding might be, I would have to probably say not at this time, not to go with that.
Ms. Bounds.
Well, this is kind of redundant, but I am really excited, Mr. Harris, that you mentioned teacher raises, because balanced calendar is part of our 5-year strategic plan, but also to get to 20% for teacher raises. And when you look at scenario 5 and $8,000 or almost $9,000, well, not million, I was going thousands, $9 million, that could significantly fund a teacher raise, and it could do it over a 5-year period, because this is not a one-time cost. This is a reoccurring cost. And the mayor just decided not to fund any of the 3 schools, and that's what I've been talking to people about as I've gone around the county. You've got a reoccurring cost, and I really think the figures are very low compared to Nashville when they implemented it, and other school districts, a lot of whom have moved away from balanced calendar or year-round school because of the cost. So I think this is on the very low end, but 2 years of a balanced calendar would build a North Central sector school, or 3 years of a balanced calendar would fund a new Gibbs or a new Hardin Valley that would last for 30 or 40 years. So I think it's just about priorities. It's not that it's, necessarily a bad thing, and the discussion's been good, but I just think at some point there's just so many more things on the education horizon to be discussing than whether we're going to change 10 days here or there. I don't know, especially as you started out the conversation, Mr. McMillan, with the cost, but you could almost do teacher raises and technology, Doug, with that cost.